Hey guys, welcome to another episode of The Completionist. So for this episode, guys, I'm going to talk about the games that I actually completed for the 2022 winter season. Now, as some of you, you'll notice that you're watching this video in the middle of April, and the reason why that is even though I'm currently back in Alberta right now, I went back to Alberta on April the 1st. One thing I wanted to do, guys, is I kind of wanted to straddle my videos out a little longer. I didn't want to try to release all of them, within a very short time frame. Just as a way, to keep the channel consistent, because the only time I'm ever able to make videos is, during the winter break, even though I do get home for 2 weeks during the summer. So what I did is I ended up recording a bunch of videos, and I'm going to try to post at least one of them during the middle of each month until I get home again in August. So this is a video that I do literally at the end of my winter break, where I talk about all the games that I actually completed during the winter 2022 season. And to be honest, guys, it wasn't a very productive year, start of the year with regards to me and gaming. Normally I try to get 5 games completed over the winter season, but unfortunately over the last 3.5 months I've only been able to get 3 games completed. And I had 5 games total that I did play over the winter break, but 2 of them I didn't get a chance to complete yet, even though I'm getting dangerously close. So what I wanted to do for this episode, guys, is I just wanted to talk to you about the 3 games that I did complete at the start of this year, and the 2 games that I'm still currently trying to complete right now. So anyway, let's get started. So anyway, the first game that I decided to get out of the way, guys, is probably my biggest game completion of the year, because it's certainly the one that took the most amount of time. It's a sequel to my favorite game for the Nintendo DS, and it took Square Enix long enough to finally make a sequel to it, and because it certainly is long overdue. And this game was given to me as a birthday gift from my best friend, because both me and him absolutely love the original game for the DS, and when we heard that the game was getting a sequel, we were beyond excited. And even though I have the game completed, my best friend is currently working on the game right now, because he was currently playing the other games at the time. And if you haven't already figured it out, guys, it is Neo, The World Ends With You for the PS4. So what did I think of it, and how was it when it came to completion? To be honest, guys, it's a really enjoyable game. I don't think it lives up to how good the original game is, because obviously there's a huge sharp contrast in gameplay, because you're taking a title that was originally for the DS and you're bringing it into the current generation of consoles. And sometimes that can be a bit of a jarring transition, because I really thought how the game was designed for the DS and the touchpad and the stylus, I thought it worked really well. So I was kind of concerned when this game got released for a console, just to see how the transition would be, from a portable game to a console game. But thankfully they actually did a really good job with the transition. But frankly, I think they took too long to make it. It should have never took this long to make a proper sequel to the original game, because it's still an enjoyable game, but I think it missed the hype train. Obviously a lot of people were excited for it when it got released, but just too much time had passed. At least over 10 years, maybe 15 years. And even though the original game did have a release on the Switch, unfortunately the Switch controls for the original The World Ends With You aren't the greatest. It's hard to take a DS title that focuses on the touchpad and the stylus and to kind of bring it over to a current generation console. You know, I did help my friend play a little bit of it, but it was okay. The controls were very touch and go. So with regards to the to Neo: The World Ends With You, I do have the Platinum Trophy for the game. It is completed and it is permanently retired. And I really enjoyed it. The thing is that there were some characters that I liked, there were some characters that I didn't like, but overall, you know, the gameplay was pretty sharp. I read a lot of reviews on the game that really didn't like the story, or you know, how the story was handled, or anything along those lines, but I don't really know what those reviewers were talking about. I thought the story was great. I thought the story was a great continuation of the original game, and frankly, I really enjoyed it. You know, I really don't want to say any spoilers, you know, for those that haven't played it before, but a lot of you guys are on my Facebook, so you've probably seen some of the spoilers that I've been posting on Facebook, you know, regarding the game to begin with. But don't let that deter you from actually playing the game, because it really is enjoyable. With regards to completion, guys, the completionist requirements for this game are actually relatively simple, but it can be a bit of a time sink. One of the best things I've always enjoyed about the World Ends With You game series is that it is literally impossible to miss anything in the game, because you can go back to any week, to any day throughout the 3-week time frame and do things that you might have missed. The thing is that when you actually play this game for the first time, the amount of stuff that you have to do is going to seem incredibly daunting at first, because there's a whole ton of things that you have to collect. You have to collect outfits, you have to collect books, you have to collect all the pins, you have to evolve all the pins, you have to collect all the different kinds of food, you have to do every side quest, you have to find every pig noise, you have to defeat every enemy and every boss on the 4 difficulty levels, easy, medium, hard, and ultimate. And but once you get into the groove of the game, all the completionist standards are pretty straightforward. You know, you have a social network that you need to fill out, and the thing is that it's the type of game that you can really play at your own pace. Because I really wish I could tell you the amount of time I spent on it, but I don't know, because I still can't figure out a way on the PS4 to actually see my gameplay time that I actually spent on the game. Because my best advice when it comes to playing this game, guys, is to just play at your own pace. It's just that you don't have to worry about missing anything. Just play the game to your heart's content, just get through the story. You're not obligated, you know, to do all the side content. Just find a great pin weapon combination for you and just blast through the game. And if you feel like doing everything else, you can go back and do everything else. You can go back to, like I said, any day, and you can adjust the difficulty level as long as you unlock it in the social network. And personally, I love when a game can do that, because oftentimes I'm often doing research into a game just to make sure that there are no permanent missables, that I'm not going to do anything in which I have to start over, because it has happened before. But with this game, you don't have that worry. You can go back and do anything at any time, and it's actually quite a really great experience. The thing is that I still think the music in the first game is much better than the music in this game. I like the pins in the first game a lot more than, you know, this entry. I like the boss fights in the first game a lot more than this entry. But even though overall I did enjoy the original The World Ends With You game over Neo, Neo is still a great sequel. And it continues to build the mythology of the World Ends With You universe. But I think if they ever decide to make another game in the series, they have to take it out of Shibuya, and they got to go into a different neighborhood. I think they pretty much milked out that area in Japan as much as possible, and I think it's time to change the setting if they ever do decide to make another The World Ends With You game. But overall, Neo The World Ends With You is the game that I spent the most amount of time on trying to complete over the winter break, and I certainly enjoyed it. Even though it may not be as good as the first game, I certainly got my enjoyment out of it. I hope for those that have played it, I certainly hope you guys have gotten your enjoyment out of it too. So for the second game, guys, I decided to go with something relatively simple. There's not really much to talk about this game because it is for the NES. Sometimes when I pick an NES, I just pick games completely at random. It's because I grew up playing not a lot of NES games, so I go through the NES games that actually interest me, and I just make a list in alphabetical order. And I do this when it comes to watching anime as well. When I'm in the mood to play a game for a certain system, I usually go through a random letter generator and then a random number generator afterwards. So, for example, like the game that I actually completed for the NES is Akari 3: The Rescue. So how did I come across this one? It's the same thing. I completely randomized it, guys. So the random letter generator landed on I, and I looked at all the games for the NES that I wanted to play that began with the letter I, and I just hit a random number generator, and that made the choice for me. So the one thing I will say about Akari 3: The Rescue is that I'm so happy the game has unlimited continues, because I don't know how anyone would ever be able to get through that game if you only had a limited amount of continues. Like usually most NES games had anywhere from 3 to 5 continues, and if that was the case, I wouldn't know how anyone would be able to complete it, because the hit detection in this game is so bad, and it is like kind of like a top down action game, beat 'em up, kind of like that, but the hit detection is really bad, and like a lot of the enemies can actually swarm you and kill you quite easily. So I was over the moon when I found out that the game had unlimited continues. I said to myself, okay, this should be a pretty quick and easy game to polish off. And you know, when I did play it, I did polish it off that same day. So that game is now completed and permanently retired. And generally my feelings on it, guys, it's okay. It's, I pity the people that probably actually bought that game, because it is a rental at best. If you're just looking to finish up your NES library, it's a quick game to actually just polish off, and then you can put it back on the shelf and never have to play it again. So that was pretty much my thoughts on it. I think the most enjoyable aspect of the game wasn't necessarily the scenes where you were walking or fighting. It was the scenes where there was a slight shoot 'em up section to it, especially the underwater level where you're a scuba diver. That was probably my most enjoyable a part of the game, because it gave me a great reminiscence of the old school NES shoot 'em up games. So, but other than that, guys, it's not very memorable. So for me, it was just a quick game to just polish off and permanently retire. So that's pretty much all I got to say about that, because that's all there is to it. You just go through all the levels and just beat the final boss and rescue the president's daughter, and then get treated to an ending with some good old English. So, but that's how some of the NES games were back in the day. So the final game that I did manage to complete, guys, was a game that I actually started in the winter break of 2021, but I couldn't get that one done because I ran out of time. So I picked that one back up again, and I actually finally got it completed and permanently retired. And that game is Mega Man and Bass for the GBA. I was warned about this game from my best friend, who's a die-hard Mega Man fan. He warned me that the game was much different than like a lot of other Mega Man titles. He warned me that there were going to be some really frustrating aspects of the game. But overall, you know, I did enjoy it, even though it had its share of frustrating moments. Probably the biggest thing I did like about the game is that the completionist standards were pretty straightforward. You know, I like games that have collectibles. I really do. It gives you a reason. It gives you a reason to kind of go back to the stages. And the biggest collectible in Mega Man and Base is you can collect CDs. And each CD has a Mega Man character or a bio on one of the Robot Masters from all the other previous Mega Man games, regardless if they were released for the NES, SNES, you know, PlayStation, Game Boy, anything like that. And I actually really enjoyed collecting all those discs because there's so many of them, and some of them are incredibly well hidden. Some of them you can only get with Mega Man, some of them you can only get with Base, but it added quite an addictive factor to the game that I actually really did enjoy. But regardless of how much fun the collectathon was, some of the discs were very frustrating to get. You know, I remember one in the Ground Man stage, or, you know, I think that's the Robot Master, is that you had to use Rush Search while the ground was deteriorating by these enemies that would jump up and eat up the ground. So you had to do it incredibly quick, and you had to keep killing the enemy, because if the enemy hit Rush, then Rush wouldn't have enough time to search for it. So I spent a considerable amount of time trying to get that CD. And that was incredibly frustrating. And the game has a lot of cheap deaths. It really does. You know, it's definitely far from being the best stage designed Mega Man game, and the fact that the health pickups aren't really all that great. You don't have E-tanks, as far as I know. Sure, you get power-ups where you don't take a lot of damage, and sometimes if you summon Eddie, you know, if you're lucky, he'll give you some health power-ups, but you don't have E-tanks. And I remember, you know, fighting back-to-back Wily bosses, and the last stage Wily boss is actually really frustrating, and especially if you don't go into it, you know, with a lot of health, because his 3 attacks, you know, your timing has to be dead on, because it's just unfortunate that, you know, that Mega Man has slide and, you know, Base doesn't. And I spent a considerable amount of time, you know, actually fighting that Wily boss, because it's definitely one of the more unfair Wily bosses that I've actually had to go up against with regards to the Mega Man games. But probably my biggest frustrating aspect of Mega Man and Base is that there's a stage in King's Castle where you have to fight this flying tank. And the thing is that the flying tank, just numerous platforms keep popping up at different elevations, and you got to keep jumping or else you'll fall off and you'll die. But to make matters worse, the boss will shoot like flash grenades, and if Mega Man shoots them or touches them, then they blind the screen white for just a split second. But it could be enough to screw you up, because not only do you have to shoot, and you have to hit a very small weak spot on the actual boss, and you have the flash grenades to deal with, and then you have the continuous jumping on the platforms to deal with, but then the boss shoots fists that are rockets that will actually destroy the platforms that you're jumping on if you're currently at the same elevation that the fists are being fired at you. And that has probably got to be one of the most frustrating Mega Man boss battles I've ever had to fight. That was probably the most amount of time spent out of the entire game. And I will state on record, Burner Man can go fuck himself. It's definitely one of the most frustrating Robot Master battles I've had to fight, because Cold Man's weapon, even though it does a lot of damage, it's really useless against them. You know, you're much better off using the Buster, because Burner Man does so much damage, and his stage and his and his boss stage where you fight him can be incredibly unfair because you have spikes on both sides of his boss room, and that was another aspect of the game that I really didn't like. But it's completed. It's permanently retired. With regards to the completionist requirements, guys, you just have to beat the game with Mega Man, get all of his power-ups in the shop, and then you have to beat the game with Bass and get all of his power-ups. And you just have to collect all 100 CDs. And thankfully, you don't have to collect 100 CDs for each playthrough, because they all carry on to the next playthrough, because some of the CDs can only be gotten by Bass, and some of the other CDs can only be gotten by Mega Man. But despite the frustrating aspects of the game, guys, I did really enjoy it. I do like the callback with Mega Man and Bass by using two of the Robot Masters from Mega Man 8. Tengu Man is still one of my favorite designed Robot Boss Masters, and Astro Man as well. And so it was a nice little callback to Mega Man 8. But it's another Mega Man game that is completely and permanently retired. So on to the next Mega Man game, whichever one that's going to be. So those are the 3 games that I actually completed over the winter 2022 season. Now, just really quickly, guys, the other 2 games that I tried to complete while I was home are these 2. So the 2 games are Capcom Night in Busyland for the SNES and Tales of Destiny for the PlayStation 1. So Capcom Night in Busyland, it's pretty much an anime style version of the game Kicks, I think, where you have to draw a line to fill out as much of the screen as possible, while fighting enemies. I got dangerously close to completing the game. I can always get to the final level, but I just never have enough credits. I never have enough continues, and obviously, with it being the final boss, it can be a little difficult. Now, with regards to that game completion, if I was any good at these games, you just have to beat the game with each of the 3 characters, and that's it. And I still haven't beaten the game with 1. You get a little boy character, you get a little girl character, and you get a little robot. The boy character is medium speed, the little girl character is fast speed, and the robot is really slow speed. So I still work on the game. I'll probably spend an hour on it, and hopefully eventually I can get it completed and permanently retired. And the other game, guys, is Tales of Destiny. If you watched my video about the random enemy drop, I'm kind of stuck in the game right now, in the sense that I'm pretty far in the game. I think I'm only a couple of dungeons left to completing it, but I'm fighting a boss that offers a really rare item that you can only get 1 of, and you can only get it in that boss fight, but it has a 1% drop rate. So I think I fought that boss maybe about 25 times, no luck. So I think that game is going to have to be held off until I get home again. So, but both games, guys, I've really been enjoying. I play mostly anime style games, so those were the other 2 games that I'm currently working on right now. But they're certainly not completed. So maybe I'll get Capcom Night in Busyland completed while I'm working away from home, since I do have access to a lot of SNES games while I work away from home. But I probably won't touch Tales of Destiny again until I get home during the summer, or I get home during the next winter break. So anyway, guys, that takes care of another episode of The Completionist. So I'm glad you got to see the games that I managed to complete and permanently retire over the winter 2022 season. So anyway, guys, I'm currently back to work in Alberta right now, so we'll see how the work season goes. So thanks for watching, and thanks for always being the best kind. And as I always say, guys, take care, and I wish you nothing but the best. Later.